Welcome to JHart Modelworks. It's time to wrap up the 1940 Ford pickup from Revell. We may be in the home stretch, but there's a lot left to do, so grab a drink and let's get to it. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. We're going to start by taking some measurements of the battery and the battery area. I'm not fond of how they handle the battery, and I want to make some improvements. With our measurements taken, we'll scratch build an Optima red top. I'm not going to go into the full build process for this though, as I have a full tutorial video on how to scratch build Optima style batteries. I'll link that up above and in the description below. So Revell has you glue the battery to the side of the engine bay on a tiny ledge, and this annoys me, in the same way that alternators floating in mid-air really annoys me. So using some soda can aluminum, we're going to fabricate a small battery tray so that it looks like the battery is sitting on something. Using our measurements, a jewelry awl, and a ruler, we're going to scribe out and then eventually cut out the battery tray. I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, so this is the general plan of what I'm going to scribe and cut out. We basically have a base, a back and two sides that are the same height, and a small lip in the front to hold the battery. To give the tray some character and depth, I decided to cut the sides at an angle going up towards the back. Next, we want to take it to the photo etch bender and bend all four sides up at a 90-degree angle. And then we'll run some CA glue up the inside seams just to give it a little strength. With the tray completed, we can put the finishing touches on the battery like the Optima logo decals and some battery cables. I'm using white do-it-yourself decal paper from Expert's Choice, so I really have to cut right up to the very edge of the design. And I find that microset works really well with these. A quick test fit and everything looks like it's going to fit good. For the cables, we're going to use some 30 gauge hookup wire and some photo etch ends from Detail Masters. Then we can glue the battery into the tray and glue it to the side of the engine bay. And personally, I think that looks a lot better than just having a battery floating there in space. Alright, now it's time to make the frame to the chassis. There's a couple of locating pins back here near the rear wheels. We definitely want to get some CA glue back here, and then we'll get some up front as well. Now, when we sandwich these together, we need to watch out for our battery cables and our engine to make sure we don't catch anything or get any glue on something. We just want to be real careful. With all that done, we can then cut off our positive cable and tuck it to the starter, and tuck the negative back to the frame. Now we want to assemble the rest of the main body and bed components. We're going to start with the grille. Just a little bit of CA glue. Very careful, we don't want it to ooze out or get anything on the body. Next, we want to glue on the running boards. I thought about doing these in copper, but I decided to keep them in black, and I think it was a good choice. For the bed, I'm going to start with one of the side panels. Once we have this on straight, it'll give us good reference points for the front and the rear panels. We're then going to glue the front panel in place. Per the instructions, the bed should have been assembled before the cab went on, and it would have been easier to assemble the bed without the cab in the way. But for the sake of recording the interior video, I put the cab on first. We'll just work around it. When putting on the other side, I tried to put the tailgate on too. I wanted the tailgate to remain functional, but it just kept falling off. I eventually ended up gluing the tailgate in place. Now we're going to add the rear fenders. I'm not super happy with these. There's a locating pin at the front of the fender that glues to the running board, but that's the only real, even somewhat positive locating point. There are some raised pins on the side of the bed, but it doesn't connect to anything. It's really there as just a bump rest, and you end up just butt fitting the fender to the side. I ended up putting glue on most of the inside edge of the fender and gluing it to the bed, which really runs the risk of getting glue all over the body and ruining the paint. We lucked out this time though. Right here's the point where I give up on the tailgate and just end up gluing it in place. During the body prep, I ran a pin in the gas cap and drilled a hole in the fender like I normally do with my mirrors, and I'm going to carefully glue the gas cap in place. And after that, we can glue on the taillights. Using some ProTech heater hose and some trial and error, we're going to bend a line to run from the gas cap to the fuel tank. Once we have the shape right, we can cut it off, tuck it under the frame, and glue it to the gas cap under the fender. The truck has an external oil filter, so we're just going to go ahead and glue that in place here on the firewall. And now we want to attach the bumper. We'll end up making our license plate later, but I'm going to go ahead and glue the license plate frame in right here. Now that the body's done, we can trim back the exhaust pipes and make some tips. I'm going to cut two matching pieces of aluminum tubing. I believe this is roughly 3mm diameter. I'm cutting them 10mm long. We're going to add some tape to one end of the tube so that we can chuck it into a drill without marring up the surface. We're going to use a flat file to clean up any burrs on the ends. And using our round file, we're going to clean out the inside and thin down the walls so they look more realistic. The wire we used for the exhaust is significantly thinner than what we're using for the tips, so we're going to glue a little bit of 2mm tubing inside the 3mm tubing. This will step down the tips so that they fit snugly around our exhaust pipes. Using some sanding sponge, we want to clean up any paint residue and get it ready for primer and paint. Alright, we want to lay down some soft paper towels so we don't scratch up the roof. And before we glue on the tips, we want to add a little Vallejo black to the very ends of the exhaust. This way, when we do glue on the tips and we look down them, it'll look like we're looking down a long hollow pipe instead of seeing the ends of the wire. Once that's dry, we'll just add a little glue to the inside of our exhaust tips and slide them on. Make sure everything's nice and straight. Now, since we did custom scratch build the exhaust, the two pipes aren't exactly the same shape. So when we glue on the second tip, it's important that we make sure it lines up as perfect as possible with the first one and that it ends at the same length. We're going to bust out our tire jig. We got the tip for this from Matt over at Model Car Videos. We're going to chuck the tire into our drill, and we're going to take our 120 grit UMP sander and sand down any seams and put some wear on the tires. You'll want to make sure that you angle the sander into the side grooves so that we can put some wear on the side edges of the tires as well. And then using some 400 grit Tamiya sanding sponge, we're just going to take the shine off the sides of the tires. We want to press or glue the wheel backs into the tires. And then the front of the wheels have three little tabs. We'll put some glue on these and line them up with the holes on the backs, and then press them firmly in place. Once we have them glued together, we can then glue on our knockoffs. Make sure to put your finger on the opposite end of the axle, so when you press the wheel on, the force goes against the other finger instead of going against your suspension and breaking or ripping off the rear diff. The wheels take a good deal of pressure to snap into place. Yeah, those look good. Those look real good. Next up, we're going to glue on our door hinges. And the dangers to using tweezers like this is if you pinch too hard, one of them is going to ping off into outer space, never to be seen again. Now, luckily, I bought somebody's used started glue bomb for a missing part. So I actually have an extra set of door handles, so I just stripped another one and painted it up, and we glued that into place right here. And we'll follow that up with the windshield wiper. And onto the headlights. So I'm going to use some Bondic. I'm going to put just a tiny little bit inside here, and then I'm just going to use the tip to rub it all the way around. Then I'll set the lens in place and cure it with the light. And then add some CA glue to the outside of the headlight bucket and very carefully glue these into place. We don't want to get any glue on our fingers or on the body. It's a good idea to check your fingers between each part you glue into place. Now the instructions say not to glue the bed rails in place, but for me they don't stand up otherwise, and I have no plans on ever using the bed cover, so I went ahead and glued them in. Now, I wish the mirrors had been larger so that I could have run some pins in them. They weren't. So we are going to deal with just gluing them onto the doors. We want to be very careful. We don't want to make a bunch of super glue mess. Put a little bit of glue right on the base of the mirror and then press and hold it in place and try very hard not to move it. Next, we're going to use our display circle cutter, and we're going to cut some 4mm circles out of the Hasakawa mirror finish chrome. Just kind of carefully press those onto our mirrors. We should have done that before we glued them on. Didn't think about it. So now we're carefully trying not to break them off. We're almost done, guys. Next up, we have our registration sticker, which we printed out on some Expert's Choice white decal film. We're just going to go ahead and place that on here on the corner. And kind of nudge that in place with our cotton bud. Dry it out. And our very last piece is the license plate. We're going to start by taking the paint off with some aluminum. We're then going to cut our decal straight up on the edge. Again, this is the white decal sheet, so we've got to cut it right up on the edges. We want to be sure to notch off our corners, as the Texas plates are rounded. Then we want to apply our decal straight to the aluminum. Using our cotton bud, we want to roll out any excess moisture from out from underneath the decal. We're just going to let that dry nice and flat. Once it's dry, we're going to cut the plate off. Once again, we want to cut right up to the decal and notch those corners. For the finishing touch, we're going to add some 0.03-inch ProTech photo etch bolts to the plate. Using a toothpick, we'll carefully add a drop of CA glue to the plate, then moisten the other end of the toothpick and use it to pick up the bolt and touch it in place. The CA glue will catch the bolt and pull it off the toothpick pretty much instantly. Pay real close attention to which end of the toothpick is which. Now we're just going to add a little bit of glue to the frame and press our license plate home. And that's going to wrap it up for this build. Join me at the display case for a look at the finished results. Alright guys, here she is all wrapped up and finished. I'm really glad I chose to strip the chrome and go with the copper. The copper is a great accent color to that green, I think. I think it gives it a classy yet antique look. I think the two-tone wheels came out awesome. We have our undercarriage there with our custom exhaust. We have our copper tailpipes. I think the black on the tips of the jewelry wire really makes it look more realistic, like pipes, instead of seeing the ends of the jewelry wire in there. We'll try to get a good look at our interior in there. It's kind of dark. We have our little registration sticker in there with the model and the year we finished the build. I'm really happy with the way this wood bed turned out and the matching bed rails. Take a quick look at our engine. The detailing came out really nice. Plug wires came out nice, and you can see just the tips of the plugs sticking out of the heads like you would on a real flathead. No floating battery thanks to our little bracket. Our triple air cleaners came out looking really nice as well. The paint didn't get chipped or anything. We have our fuel line running from the gas cap to the tank. One of those little details that only we'll ever know about. So yeah, all in all, I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with how she came out. For being an old kit, it really builds up pretty nice. I want to take a second to thank Charlie Mack and Al Woods for hosting the Pearl Harbor 80th Anniversary group build. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you on the next one. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.